The rain kept falling while I was trying to edit, and my natural impulse is to go outside to document the rainfall, because let's face it, I don't know about how you feel, but I enjoy being out in extreme weather as long as it is safe. With that said, I hope everyone down south is safe and sound, and at least speaking for myself, my heart, my thoughts are completely with you. So not to certainly make light of nasty weather, but this is a pretty torrential downpour that we have here up in New York. And what is relevant is that today was supposed to be a day that I was going to camp outside, essentially in the middle of in the middle of nowhere, in a forest. And although it would have made for an amazing video, I wouldn't have been able to use any of my cameras except for my GoPro and my cell phone, which the iPhone, let's face it, it's not water resistant. Well, it's not waterproof, it's water resistant. So it really should not be out in this kind of weather, although I do take it out when it is pouring from time to time. So I'm kind of happy that I did not go camping today, even though, like I said, it would have made for a pretty great video, a challenge for me personally. From a photography standpoint, it probably would have resulted in too many issues. So I wanted to give us all a brief moment, if you're not already doing it yourself, to take a look outside your window if it's raining. Maybe open up that window. Or if you can't do that, if you're sitting at your office desk, use a little bit of imagination. I want you to take a look at the sight. I want you to listen to the sounds and imagine the aromatics, the smell of such a moment. Reminding everybody that it is mid-October. I'm surrounded by pine trees. I'm surrounded, you can't quite see them at the moment, but by tons of maple trees, or maple leaves, I should say. And the ground is quite saturated, so a very earthy aromatic. And one of the so let me just pause for a moment. Let me reframe and try to imagine the smells. What do you smell listening and looking at this image? In all seriousness. And Trisha says, I love the smell of the rain. Yes, the rain itself, but also what the rain does to the environment. Leslie says, slight rain and I'm surrounded by tall oak trees. Love my new location, smells so fresh and new. And Stephanie says, we do have some clouds today. So yes, the rain does have a smell all its own, of course. But it induces, and I'm shooting through a mesh screen here, so I apologize. And give us a new vantage point here. But it also, the rain also induces other aromas. You know, it saturates the ground, it saturates the greenage, it pulls things off the trees. It completely alters the aroma of our environment, whether it be, you know, the smell of a rain-swept highway or sidewalk, driveway or asphalt. I'm looking at that. That's actually an apple tree right here, right there, and imagining the very few apples that it probably did produce. It's a very old apple tree, but the smell of the apples that are now sort of rotting on the ground. And although rotting might sound like a disgusting, nasty word, not everything that is old and withering away or decaying is a bad smell. Around this area too, I can confirm that there's a huge pile of cut grass, right? So every time this property gets cut, the grass gets cut, all of the grass is dumped right behind that cottage right there. And it just sits there, it bakes in the sun, and then when it rains, it's like fuel on the fire. It releases the aromatics of that pile, and it is incredible. And it's always been my strong belief, my strong opinion that I love the smell of outdoors. So a lot of folks who are passionate about home fragrance, who are passionate about making their houses smell beautiful and wonderful, like flowers and bouquets and clean laundry. I get that, I love that. But I love the authenticity of real outdoor smells. It's not just about the beautiful things that we put in candles like baking spices and pumpkin pies. Why don't we have candles that smell like this moment? And if we did, let's say, would we buy them? Would we buy a candle? I'm sorry for the framing here. Would we buy a candle that smells like that rather gnarly tree in the background, whose bark is slowly peeling away from its structure? Would we buy a candle that smells like those decaying leaves? Would we smell or buy a candle that smells like saturated soil? I don't know. I haven't been out here on the porch. I haven't brought you folks out here in a while. This is where I do a lot of my thinking these days. And you can see right over here, this is what's really amazing. And I'm going to address your questions in just a moment, folks. If you see this flooding, I don't know if you can pick up on the movement of the water, but this water is definitely moving. This is definitely flooding. And what's happening here, let me explain this real quick. Behind these ancient, well, not ancient, because they're older than I am, probably, but they're not ancient. But behind these pine trees, these very tall pine trees that probably are close to 100 feet tall, there's a mountain that all of the runoff, all of the rainwater essentially collects, pools, funnels, and finds certain areas to drop the water off from the mountain. So that water is collecting all of the wonderfulness, that's right, of the mountains. And it's carrying it down from the mountain and bringing it right to us so we can smell it, we can hear it. I don't know, maybe I over-romanticize some of these things a bit too much, but you know, this is how I like to clear my head. Let's read some of your comments here. I'm looking out my office window with the rain, but all I smell is what people are eating for lunch, says Nicole. Isn't that usually the case, right? You know? This is why I don't have much advice to give people. Friends, family. I really don't have much advice. I don't usually have those words of wisdom. But the one thing I can say for sure is to make sure that on a daily basis you stop to smell the roses. And I mean this literally. Okay, so you're not always going to find roses, but to take moments like this when you are outside, or if you're driving home and you see something and you see that experience and you're like, you know what, it'd be great to stop and take a photo right now. Pull that car over to the side. Pull it over to the side. As long as you're safe, get out of the car, take that photograph, but also remember to be there in that moment. Make a memory, soak it all in. Maybe I've obtained this sort of routine because I've lived in very beautiful places in my life, but no matter where you are, what location you're living in, there's always, so to speak, ways to stop and smell the roses. In Lake Tahoe, it smells like pine pollen when it rains, says Stephanie. Lake Tahoe, yes. Can you believe it? I've never been to Lake Tahoe, even though it was only a short drive from where I lived for many years. Kind of upset about that, but one day I will get up to Lake Tahoe, only I can't ski. So I need to find other activities. And Iris is saying, yes, I finally caught one of these live feeds. Well, this is a really, really random, spontaneous stream or feed, Iris, but very happy to have you here. I love that scenery and can almost smell it from here. Camp in your backyard. Well, obviously not today, but in general. There's certainly many places. There's an abundance of places. This is really, we're at the foothills. You can't see the mountain, unfortunately, because of this rather large tree right there. But trust me, there is a mountain. Some people would call it a large hill, but I have hiked up that mountain and have documented my who is and always has become that. I don't know if this is the case where you live, anybody, but where I live, at least in New York, and even just the Northeast in general, people are very protective of their property, as they should be. But there are posted signs, there are no trespassing signs, there are signs of you will be prosecuted. Sometimes you'll even see things like you will be shot. Very strange. All these people, I'm sure, have the greatest intentions. But on the West Coast, you know, I could go out and hike for days through the hills, through the mountains, through the vineyards. And yeah, technically you weren't allowed to do it. But if they caught you, they would say, hey, this is my property, man. You got to get off. But there wouldn't be this extreme sense of danger that there were people on your land. So much so where they would have to post an enormous amount of no trespassing signs. And Stephanie says, kind of like which City Wicks holy ground. Well, yes, that is that is the reason precisely why I love that candle so much, is because that it has that wet grass, that mossy, that oak moss, and very strong sandalwood aroma. It's not a sweet experience. It's not a floral experience. It's not a culinary experience. It really is like taking a snooze out in a field or a cemetery, I suppose, while everything has been blanketed with a little bit of rain. Has to be a hot boardwalk. That's probably in reference to Laura's question, fresh, wet boardwalk. I'm guessing that's something that she likes. And Leslie says, it gets dark here now. I guess the heavy rains are coming here now. It's pretty dark. The camera's making things a little bit more bright. But speaking of getting dark, the days are getting shorter and shorter. It's one of the small things that, I shouldn't say small, one of the things that I do sort of get upset about this time of year. Sunlight hours decrease. Speaking of rain, we are getting much needed cooling off, says Iris. I suppose due to the hurricane that came through, because we are soaked from a... And Eric wants to compose a poem. Well, you're gonna have to come back, Eric, and leave that in the comments below. I just wanted to give this a quick 20 minutes outside, a little time together. I promise some spontaneous vlogs or live streams. There will be many more to come, especially when I'm out on the road, but it is editing week. So if you're in the house still, and if you enjoyed this little escape out into the storm, remember to hit that thumbs up button. And remember to subscribe. This is my second channel, Aromatically Speaking. A lot of live content and candle content coming to this channel. Even edited content, because the main channel, the Candle Enthusiast, will be mainly travel videos from this point until the rest of the year, until 2019. So make sure you're subscribed to both channels. And please always remember to come back and leave a comment. Thank you for joining in today. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I'm going to batten the hatches and head back to editing. Wish me luck, and I'll talk to you soon, folks. Have a good one.